morning, Golden Hawks, and for this e-learning this coming Friday, well, you'll be watching this on Friday or maybe even Thursday, I'm wanting you guys to share with your group, with the team, your favorite recipe. Maybe you enjoy cooking at home with your families, and that's what I'm going to share with you today. This is also going to be somewhat of a writing. Mrs. Asher is going to have you do some writing based upon this, but hopefully this will be a fun e-learning activity that you can work on Friday or over the weekend, understanding that you need to make sure that you have help from an adult. Unless you're very good at cooking this particular item, please make sure you're doing it safely and with the supervision of an adult. Could be something as simple as a box of mac and cheese to maybe something, well, not that this is going to be fancy, but something a little bit that has a few more steps in it. What we're hopefully gaining today as you're working on this is that you're kind of observing the different states of matter, how solids and liquids, in the case of what I'm going to be making today, kind of come together, form new liquids in this particular recipe. This week we'll talk about states of matter, physical change, chemical change. Maybe you'll see some of that in what you're doing. But the goal is to have some fun, create a video that will hopefully be able to share these over the course of the coming weeks, just so we can see everybody having some fun, doing a little cooking in their home environments. So what I'm going to be making for you guys today is called an eclair cake. And I had never been introduced to eclair cakes until I was dating my wife, and she had cooked me dinner one evening and created one of these eclair cakes. And it has been a staple in our household ever since. I'm making one this morning for my son, is having some friends over for the Super Bowl tonight. So hopefully it'll be ready to go. It does take a little while to set up, and I'll talk a little bit about that. But essentially what you need is like just an empty casserole dish like I have here. You're going to need a bowl to do some mixing because we're going to be making some pudding, a pudding mixture of sorts. A couple boxes of vanilla pudding mix, instant. A container of a chocolate, like this is creamy chocolate frosting. You can get like dark chocolate. There's all different types of chocolates. And then a box of graham crackers. And I've got two because I made this a couple weeks ago. It doesn't take a whole box, so I needed to get a second box so that I'd have enough. And then some milk. That's going to help with creating our topping. And I forgot one thing. A tub of Cool Whip topping. So the first step is to make your pudding. So the ingredients, the way you make this is you need 2 cups of cold milk per box. So I'm going to need a total of 4 cups of cold milk in this bowl. Push this up. So there's 1. We got my liquid measuring cup. Has all different types of fractions on it, from 1/4 of a cup all the way up to a full cup near the top of the container. And you can see the increments, and it even changes from liquid ounces, 2, 4, 6, 8 ounces in a half cup. So you need to pay attention to your recipe and make sure that you're getting the proper amounts. See, Zoe is in the background. So if this only makes a half a cup, or I should say it only holds a half a cup, I'm going to have to pour 8 half cups I would find in actually this has 1 cup, so I was messing up. I think this would be 4. Alright. Hopefully I didn't mess this up. But I think I'm good. It's early. Okay, I got my 4 cups of milk. I got my 2 boxes of pudding. Step is to take my little handheld mixer and mix this up until it becomes the milk and the pudding, the pudding powder or solid is going to get mixed together. And it'll start to get a little bit thicker too, because the cold milk is going to combine with that powder and take it from a pretty runny like milk, and it's going to make it a little bit more, I don't want to say solid like, but it's just going to make it more like pudding, okay? Another key thing too is that I got instant pudding. Now there are other puddings out there that you can get that you mix up just like we're doing, and you have to put them in containers and let them sit overnight so that they'll start to set up and become more of that thicker, still a liquid, but like pudding. So I've mixed it up pretty good. My next step is going to be to take my Cool Whip and plop it in the bowl with this mixture. And I meant to set this out. Cool Whip is left in the freezer, so it's not completely 100% frozen, but I'm gonna have to kind of separate it a little bit in this bowl, not a huge mess when I start mixing it. Again, this Cool Whip is going to add some more density to our mixture, and I'm hoping that by me not having it sit out, I hope it still mixes well. That's one thing I forgot to do this morning when I was laying out my ingredients. So, but hopefully the action of mixing it with the mixer is going to add that energy into it, that heat, so to speak, and cause it to break down and want to combine. gets a taste. But, all right, so I'm going to start off slow so I don't. Also, I know cooking can be messy, but if you do some cooking with your families, please make sure that you help afterwards to clean up the mess that you've made. It's fun, but you also have to be responsible. So now my pudding, milk, Cool Whip concoction is still pretty liquidy. I mean, you can see it sloshing around, but it's starting to get a little bit thicker. So those molecules that are, I mean, they're not really like warm, but they've gone from a state of being pretty liquid in our milk state, and now things are starting to, the density has increased a bit from the Cool Whip and the solid of the powder of the vanilla pudding. Things are starting to slow down a little bit as things get colder. And I'll share with you the final step here in a minute. So I've got my filling. Next, I'm going to, create my crust, so to speak. So along the bottom of my tray, I'm going to take my graham crackers, and cover the bottom as best I can. Let's take several of these. So I broke some up because I needed a total of 7.5 to cover the bottom. So I had to break some of these in half, and they've got little perforations on them, so it works perfectly. Then I'll take some of my batter. So this is basically a 3-layer type of dessert. You've got a layer of graham crackers, and you put half of your pudding mixture on it. After I put half of it in, I'll put another layer of graham crackers on top of that, and then add the rest of my pudding layer. And then last but not least, a 3rd layer of graham crackers, and then our icing, which I'll show you here in a second. So that's what I'm going to do. So the only tough thing here is eyeballing about what half of my pudding mixture looks like. Generally my first layer is kind of thin because I hate to possibly run out, so I always make my first layer a little thin, unfortunately, but that's okay. And then I'm using my spatula to spread it out to all four corners of my rectangle. Throw that in there. Now another layer. Graham crackers. Now with these, the shape of this casserole dish, it's not like a perfect rectangle where the lines, the sides go straight down. They kind of taper up. So what that means is that I'll be able to get a few more graham crackers in my second layer, because I have some gaps back here. I can break this one out. That'll fit there perfectly. I'm just going to put these parts, even though it's not perfect, in along here. And we'll just throw that one in there for now. All right. So now, second layer, graham crackers. All the rest of our pudding mixture. Close to getting half of that in the first try, so. I've done this a few times with students for e-learning back at the start of the pandemic, and then last year we did this for e-learning. And what's cool about it is you know, you guys get to share some of the stuff you enjoy making at home. Maybe it's special to your family. Maybe it's special to you. But we also kind of create a cool virtual cookbook of sorts where we can collect all these videos and collect everyone's recipes, which I will share my recipe as well, so that you guys can maybe make this at home. I've had several students in the past who've gone and got the ingredients and made their own eclair cake after having seen the video, so that's kind of cool. Like I said, this takes a lot of graham crackers, so if you have a whole box, one whole box will be enough, because I used two whole containers and part of a second. So you basically need 3 of these sleeves to get the job done. All right, I'm just gonna break this up, try and fill in some of these gaps. Okie dokie. So last step is to put some icing on our creation. And again, if you guys are at home and you're doing something along these lines, please make sure you're getting help from an adult. But icing in its contained form in this container is pretty solid. I mean, it would be a real challenge for me to scoop this out and spread it on like you would a cake. So what I do is I pop this in the microwave oven, and making sure that the lid is not on it, that this aluminum that they put on the top for protection. I've peeled that all off. So all you're left is with the container, no lid, and your icing inside. So give me 1 second. Now I popped it in the microwave for like 30 seconds, I think, and I'll pull it out here and check to see how soft it is. Again, the frosting is almost like a solid, and with that heat that we're adding, it's becoming more liquid-like. And that's what I want, because, and I'll explain this here in a second, but I want it to be really liquidy, so it's easy for me to pour over the top and spread around to get my topping. So the exterior is pretty liquid-like. I'm going to pop this in for just about 10 more seconds. All right, this should be pretty good. Just be careful with microwaves. Again, find an adult to help you if you're using microwaves and you're using a lot of pots and pans and things. It's always good to be too short on your time and temp versus too long, because I didn't want this thing like getting so hot that it would pop and make a mess of my microwave. So I'm just going to pour this over the top. Use my spatula to scoop out the stubborn parts. I mean, obviously, don't want to leave any chocolate behind, right? So we've taken pretty much a solid, turned it into a liquid for the purpose of being able to spread it out evenly, relatively evenly, and make it a lot easier on ourselves. Couldn't do this if you're like topping a cake, because the cake's going to sit out. I mean, eventually it would soften up. I mean, it would not soften, but harden up, I would think. Again, I don't know. I don't do enough baking at all. But what's happening with this is that after I get this done and spread it out a little bit more, because parts of it are kind of weak. Okay. All right. So I've got quite a mess to clean up. But here is a completed eclair cake. And it's not complete, because what I do now is I take it downstairs and I put it in the refrigerator. I'm gonna let it sit there the rest of the day until this evening, after the boys, we're cooking some chili and making some ribs for the game. So after they eat, I don't know, about halftime when we're watching the Super Bowl halftime show, pull this out. The icing, since we've stuck it back into a cool environment, will have re-solidified and making a nice topping. And the pudding, which is very, 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 not very dense, because remember, pudding can be kind of dense. If you grab one of those little puddings and you bring it to school and you have it for lunch, well, we want that. Right now it's not dense enough to be considered pudding. By putting it in the refrigerator, those molecules start to slow down like we did with the simulation. They'll start to slow down, become more solid-like, even though it's still a liquid. But make it more like pudding. So we'll have our dessert ready to go. Pretty good chance that the boys that are coming over will take care of this for me, so that I don't have too much leftovers. I don't need to eat lots of eclair cake. It's awesome, but it's not something that I need. It's not one of the major food groups. It should be though, but it's not. All right, so this is kind of along the lines of what we're thinking for our e-learning day this Friday. Hopefully you guys have some fun with it. please do it safely. Get an adult involved. Understand that if there's nobody to help you on Friday, carry it over into something you can do over the weekend with your families and have some fun with it. And like I said, once we get all your videos over the course of the coming weeks, we'll share them if we have some downtime, just for fun. All right. Okay, guys, hopefully you have a nice Super Bowl Sunday. Enjoy the game if you're watching it. If not, enjoy time with your families on this frigid Sunday morning, afternoon, evening. We'll see you guys tomorrow on Monday. Bye.